Well, good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Woo, all right, this is more energy than I had yesterday, so this is exciting. This is awesome. I'm Kristen Riegel, and for the next hour, 45 minutes or so, I'm going to take you on a tour of the land of the business plan. So, Kristen Riegel, I have been with San Bernardino County Fire now. I'm going on my 16th year. I came to San Bernardino it was not your typical way. I was going to be a microbiologist. Went to school, went to Cal Poly Pomona. Go Broncos. But I graduated, barely. Couldn't find a job when I graduated. So parents encouraged me and said, hey, why don't you go to grad school? Okay, I went to grad school and I went to Loma Linda. And I got involved in the environmental health program up there. While I was taking my hazmat class, this young lady came in and taught the class. Her name was Marilyn Kraft. For those of you who may know Marilyn, she's a legend in her own time. And I talked to her one day and I said, hey, you know, what you're doing sounds really interesting. Can I come see what you guys do? And she said, sure, come on down, take a look. And as I said, that was 16 years ago and I'm still here. Marilyn's no longer with the department, but I'm here carrying on her legacy. And I started in the business plan program. I started in business plans and I actually started in CalARP. I've moved my way up and now I'm a supervisor. I don't get to do business plans as often anymore. I get to do all sorts of really neat supervisor things and SIRS things. So this is actually a lot of fun for me to come back and give you guys business plan lessons. So what are our objectives for today? Well, we're going to talk about disclosure requirements, and disclosure requirements have changed in the last couple of years. With AB 408, we'll kind of get into that. We're going to talk about exemptions. Why? Because there's always exemptions. And being the good regulator, we brought the health and safety code because somebody is going to ask a question that I probably won't be able to answer, but we've got the book. We are going to talk about SIRS. I have screenshots of SIRS. We all know January 1st came and went. The Mayan calendar came and went. We're all here. So we've got to handle this SIRS thing. And we're going to briefly talk about the proposed amendments to Chapter 6.95. We're calling it Phase 1. The Coupa Forum Board is going forward with this, so you guys will see what we're talking about. But why does the business plan exist? Why do we do the business plan? Why do you guys do the business? Why do you do the business plan? You have to, right? You have to, but usually there's an underlying reason why we have to do it. Well, disclosure. Who are we disclosing the information to? Fire department. That's one person we're disclosing it to. Who else are we disclosing information to? The public. The public. We want to remember that the public has the right to know what is in their neighborhood for chemicals. We also do it because it's a required element, as we've already said. Jack in the back. Ooh, that rhymed. Jack from Cal EMA is here, and he is the agency that has oversight over the business plan program. But we do it for public health, to protect human health, the environment, to protect our first responders, and it's public information. We all, maybe we know, maybe we don't, we had the incident in Bhopal, India with methoisocyanate. And we had that exothermic reaction, and unfortunately people lost their lives because what happens when you guys hear sirens and see flashing red lights? What's human nature?
Turn your head and look, go down, call the traffic jam.
Right, you look, you stop, you don't move to the right for the fire department. We want to see what's going on, we want to see the accident. So when Kerr-McGee had this accident in Bhopal, they had all this equipment, they had sirens, they had flashing lights. Human nature, people walked right into the cloud of methoisocyanate, didn't know it. Do you guys know what methoisocyanate is typically used for? Or what they were using it for? They were making pesticides. So what happens when you get exposed to a pesticide? You're gonna have problems with your nervous system. If you get a big enough dose, You're going to fall over like a cockroach maybe. You're going to start foaming at the mouth, or you're going to have residual effects that happen, those chronic effects. So these men and women and children walked into a cloud. Some died immediately, some didn't. But because of this, we started being very, very aware, and there were all sorts of different accidents that were going on, and we became very aware of what was going on, and people started going, hey, I want to know what's in my neighborhood. Chemicals. Because those chemicals could reach out and touch me. So business plan program kind of evolved. So here are the wonderful requirements. As I said, Jack in the back. He's the top one there with Cal EMA. It's codified in the California Health and Safety Code, that big blue book that I have. We also have requirements in the California Code of Regulations in Title 19. Title 19 tells us how to meet the requirements in the Health and Safety Code, right? Now, here's the first issue we have. Up until January 1st, how did you guys receive business plans? Mail. You received them as paper documents, right? We all did, right? We'd go out, we'd inspect, we'd hand out a packet. Here's a beautiful packet, a business emergency contingency plan. Please fill out, at least in my county, please fill out the white pages, send us 2 copies, keep a copy for yourself. January 1st comes. What do we do now? SIRS. The correct answer is SIRS. That's what the state wants to hear. But I'll tell you right now, in San Bernardino County, if somebody walks into my office or an inspector goes out in the field and gets handed a business plan, thank you very much. Thank you for your submission. We'll take that for you. Then I hand it off to my SIRS person, and she'll be doing the workshop, and she'll be getting them in to get the information into SIRS. Title 19 still refers to forms. So we just have to be kind of careful and conscious of that. Now, the Title 27 amendments that will be going on, we hope it's going to be finalized at the late spring. That's going to hopefully fix a lot of the problems. Still going to have some Title 19 problems, but Jack in the back's going to be cool with us, right, Jack? He's nodding his head. Yes. We also have a requirement for the Hazardous Materials Management Plan and the Hazardous Materials Inventory Statement Program, the HMMP, HMIS. Have you guys gotten enough acronyms yet? I mean, you've only been here one day, but you know us hazmatters, we like to talk in acronyms. So that is actually in the Health and Safety Code in 25404, Chapter 6.11. Okay, so for the Gold Star today, what's Chapter 6.11 in the Health and Safety Code? It's the reason you're here, partially. It's where the CUPA requirements are. So these are the requirements for the CUPA, what types of training you need, and the Office of the State Fire Marshal has a role in this also for the HMMP, HMIS. Now, I'm a fire agency, right? I stood in front of you, said I'm San Bernardino County Fire. I don't wear the blue uniform, I don't wear the badge. I don't do the HMIS, HMMP regularly because I also have other fire jurisdictions within my county. For those of you that don't know, San Bernardino County is the largest county in the United States. And here's the fun fact for your adult beverage tonight. We can fit 3 East Coast states in our county and still have room left over. If I send an inspector out to Needles to do an inspection, it takes them 8 hours to drive to and from Needles. So we have to plan efficiencies around that. But we work with our fire agencies. Now, some of you in here are fire agencies, and you may also do your HMIS, HMMP, along with your article, the old Article 79 and 80. Sorry, I don't know the new terminology, my bad. And I'm married to a fire person, that's really bad. But there's all sorts of overlapping things that go on in the business plan. So this is an all-inclusive document. It's a really good document when they're done well. When they're not done so well, they're a little challenging. So this is a fun slide because I like to use colors. Colors are fun. So a business shall establish and implement a business plan for emergency response to a release or threatened release. How many of you love to deal with release reporting? Isn't that fun? When you get a call from industry that says, hey, do I have to report this or not? Well, that's what the business plan is there for, right? in case we have a release or a threatened release. What are we going to do? If the business handles a hazardous material or a mixture containing a hazardous material that has a quantity at any one time during the reporting year, that is any of the following. We're going to get into the requirements, but you see there are certain words that are in different colors. So let's whip out the handy dandy health and safety code, because when I first started, I had a completely different definition of business. So what's a business? A business means an employer, self-employed individuals, trust firm, joint stock company, corporation, partnership, or association. Okay. So how many of you have water districts? How many of you regulate water districts? Is a water district a business? No crickets. Somebody throw an answer out. Yes, it's a business. Now, do the water districts think they fall under that definition of a business? Some do, some don't. But that's why you, coming today, getting your education and business plan basics, will be able to explain to them why they are a business, right? That'll make your boss happy, your supervisor happy. A business plan. Now, those of, when I would go tell my friends and family, hey, I'm working for the fire department and I do these things called business plans, they're like, you're not a business major. No, I'm not. But a business plan, as defined in the Health and Safety Code, means a separate plan for each facility site or branch of a business that meets the requirements of Section 25504. Okay. But what does handle mean? Because you know what? A lot of people don't, when we start talking about, I don't handle that, I just store it. I don't touch it, I just store it. Well, handle means any business that handles a hazardous material. Jack, we need to work on that one. We need to work on it. What's a hazardous material? I'm sure you guys are asked that all the time. What are some of the answers you say when someone says, I don't have any hazardous materials? What do you say? Fire. Liar. Do you do liar, pants on fire? Because that's a good one too. I like that one. In years past, I could say with confidence, with 100% confidence, well, no, we'll go down 98% confidence. Does that material have a material safety data sheet? Why, yes, it does. And is there anything listed in the chemical composition area? Why, yeah, it does. Okay, you got a hazardous material. Now, I also do some teaching on the side, and I teach up at Loma Linda. I always like to give my hazmat students dihydrogen monoxide as a material safety data sheet. The smart ones get it. There's a material safety data sheet for water, but what are we now embracing? What is OSHA embracing? Where are we moving to? GHS, global harmonization, right? Be looking out for those training topics in the next Coupa conference, because we're going to be getting there, but that's where we're going. So anything that has a material safety data sheet with chemicals listed, I usually say 1% or greater. If you have a mixture, this is where you start educating your facilities, because you guys realize when you're out talking to facilities, you're talking to people on the phone, in person, you guys are teaching, right? And we are the face of the state, and we're out there spreading the word, and we want to spread the right word. Materials that have typically material safety data sheets are hazardous. Now also remember, the definition of a hazardous material includes a hazardous substance or a hazardous waste. And I'll tell you right now, I know personally I get very sloppy with definitions, because I'll say a hazardous material for something that's new, like new motor oil. Well, motor oil can be new, motor oil can be used. That's a hazardous waste. I should be saying hazardous substance, but we all kind of have this wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We all know each other. We know what we're talking about. We can get away with that. But you do have some very educated facilities out there who will say no hazardous substance, and you're like, oh yeah, hazardous material is a hazardous substance or a hazardous waste. That's going to come to play in a big role here in a couple minutes. So just remember that. Oh, reporting year, my favorite. For those of you who have heard or go to regional CUPA forum meetings, San Bernardino County was one of the last counties to stick with this March 1st deadline, because in Title 19 it says on or before March 1st you must update your business plan. It was easy for my inspectors. It was one date. If you don't submit an update by March 1st, you're out of compliance. It also coincided with the EPCA requirement. Well, thanks to Jim Bohan and to John Payne at Cali, PA, we've got this wonderful policy memorandum that clearly tells San Bernardino County you can't really do that anymore. We are now changing the way we do business to accept business plans throughout the year. Now, you will see references at the bottom of the slides where you can go get a copy of this policy memorandum. If you haven't read it yet, highly suggest you go take a look at it. You know, go back to your agency, look at your policies, look at your procedures, but we're changing the way we do business, and we're kind of doing that with SERS. SERS is kind of helping us with that, so. But this just came out. This was a late Christmas present for us. It was Happy New Year's, Happy SERS years. It came out on the 2nd of January. Take a look at it. It just further explains that you don't have to do it on March 1st. Actually, Cali, PA with SERS is encouraging all of us not to use the March 1st deadline. They want to spread out the information that's being entered into SERS throughout the year so we can better manage our workloads. And trust me, when you have a county, we have anywhere from 6,600 to 7,000 active permitted facilities. The clerical staff hate me on March 1st. They see me and it's just like, so now they get a little present. Okay, it used to be easy. When I first came to the department 16 years ago, my mantra, if you store 55 gallons of a liquid, 500 pounds of a solid, or 200 cubic feet of a compressed gas, you have to report that in a business plan. 55, 500, 200. I'd sit up at night screaming that, 55, 500, 200. San Bernardino County, we also require any amount of waste that's generated to be reported in the business plan. I don't know what your agency's requirements, policies, procedures, ordinances are. You may require that, you may not require that. But this was the easy part. Then AB 408 got passed. Now, AB 408 is a very good update to the business plan, but it threw in all sorts of different requirements. So now I just can't say 55, 500, 200, boom, because someone's going to come back and say, well, what if I have a threshold planning quantity of a chemical or extremely hazardous substance, an EHS? Well, AB 408's clarified that for us now, right? Because it says if you have those quantities, they have to be reported in a business plan. The one chemical that comes to mind, chlorine. Chlorine's my friend. What's the threshold planning quantity for chlorine? 100. Who said that? Platinum star. Thank you. Thank you. Someone who also, you do CalARP too? Yes. It helps us in CalARP because of the Table 1, Table 2, Table 3. There's going to be an exciting class right after this, well, after lunch, after this on CalARP basics. So everything you ever wanted to know, there's the plug. AB 408, you're going to notice in these slides, anything that is underlined, this is what AB 408 changed in the business plan. So if you have a threshold planning quantity of an extremely hazardous substance, you have to list it in your business plan now. If you have a total weight of 5,000 pounds, if the hazardous material is a solid or a liquid substance that is classified as a hazard for purposes of Section 5194 of Title 8, you have to report it, unless the AA. We're not talking Alcoholics Anonymous. We're talking administrating agency. Unless the administrating agency says, you got to report it. Now I have a funny story. Well, it wasn't that funny, but there are a lot of times you get different facilities that want to talk to you about reporting requirements. And they'll say, I don't believe that this is a hazardous material. And then you start asking, how much of this do you have? Well, I've got 5,000 pounds, 10,000 pounds, but it's not, it's a fertilizer. I hadn't had to run into the fertilizer question until probably about 5 years ago. Fertilizers, people would say, no, we put it on the ground, it's a fertilizer, it's all good, right? So that's where I got to talk to Jack in the back. We got to write a letter, we got to talking about it, and we said, well, maybe this doesn't meet the requirement, it doesn't meet the definition of a hazardous substance. And they didn't have to report it. But when you see section 5194 of Title 8, what am I talking about? Title 8, OSHA. So now AB 408 is now kicking us to something completely different, not in the Health and Safety Code, not in the typical CCRs that we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to what, 19, 22, 23, 27? But Title 8? Read the definition, that's a fun one too. More requirements, a total of 1,000 cubic feet. Oh, it should be if, not it. If the hazardous material is a gas at standard temperature and pressure and is classified as a hazard for the purposes of section 5194, Title 8 of the California Code of Regulations solely as a compressed gas. Okay, compressed gases have been a huge issue statewide. Yet again, my county caused some of that problem too, because there's this wonderful gas that a lot of us partake in called carbon dioxide. Because I like my Coca-Cola, I like my regular Coke. I gotta have, well, try not to, but I like to have that. I like the carbonated water. Well, we were getting pushback from restaurants, from the restaurant industry. They didn't think that they needed to report that because you consume it. How can that be hazardous if you consume it? I mean, well, yeah, try breathing it. But I mean, they've got, well, breathing it, going, and I'm good at that because it can go down the wrong way, cough and gas, but I mean, they do have a point. There are some hazardous materials out there that you consume. Carbonated beverages being one, whether it's adult or kiddie beverages. But we have 1,000 cubic feet. Possibly, you know, we're starting to raise the limits. Now, there's also, when we get into exemptions, there's another 1,000 cubic foot exemption for medical gases. Those are the good gases that we really like, the oxygens, the nitrogens, because our bodies don't do well if we don't have oxygen, usually. But there's the caveat in the Health and Safety Code that an administrating agency can go with a lower threshold as long as you go through all of the public hearings. You let everybody know, and you notify Jack in the back. Or you can go above. As long as you notify Jack in the back, go through your public hearings and all of that. And some agencies have done that. If you go out on the internet, you look at San Diego County, you look at Sacramento County, you look at LA County, I believe, we've all written ordinances for carbon dioxide because of some of the political pressure, the restaurant industries. Now that's compressed gases. Carbon dioxide also comes to us as cryogenic or really, really cold. You know, you go to the McDonald's and you see the air gas truck drive up, hook a hose into the wall, and you're like, what the heck? And they're filling up the CO2 tank. Now, would that fall under this exemption or this requirement if it's really cold or cryogenic gas? I'm gonna ask for it. Now, we started off the beginning saying, who do we do these business plans for, right? We said the public and for our first responders. And this is no disrespect to a first responder, but let me ask, how many first responders know what the hazardous materials are in the McDonald's besides the food? Well, some people will say the food. I happen to like McDonald's. But they know carbon dioxide is an issue, right? It's an asphyxiant. It displaces oxygen. Makes you really sleepy. We've had some real serious concerns with carbon dioxide, so it's kind of one of those things you have to think about. Are you going to exempt it? Are you not? Oh, here's simple asphyxiation. This is a fun one too. A hazardous material subject to the subparagraph, including a gas for which the only health and physical hazards are simple asphyxiant and release of pressure. How many times have you guys read 3 to 4 different material safety data sheets for the exact same chemical? And how many times have they differed? You know, it's usually rule of thumb, if you're running a response, you want to get at least 3 sources of information so you can confirm, deny, or do whatever with it. But it's so difficult because there are no standards for those gosh darn material safety data sheets, right? The manufacturer of the chemical is the one that's supposed to create it, write it up. Now, we've got some solutions for this. We'll talk about at the very end of class, but see, AB4, yes, sir, in the back.
I have a question on, so we just went over with like 1,000 cubic feet and 5,000 pounds. That doesn't replace the original 55, 500, 200, right?
Okay, the question is, do the requirements that we just went over, the 1,000 cubic feet and the 5,000 pounds, does that replace the original 55, 500, 200? Yeah, it does. For certain chemicals, it will. So, but that's where you, being the AA, can say, nope, I don't want to do that, and you have to justify why and go through the hoops. And in the Health and Safety Code, you can read through it and figure out if you want to create an exemption, if you don't want to create an exemption, you know, you have your county or city or county ordinance, city policies. So it's really kind of at your own discretion, but we have to go with what's in the Health and Safety Code. Yes, Mr. Poston.
The exemptions arise then from your local ordinances, or is that just something the local AA can do independently?
The question is, do the exemptions come from the local ordinances, or do they come from the Health and Safety Code? No.
Or can the administrating agency just do that on their own independently?
Or can the administrating agency do it independently? We can create an ordinance exemptions. We have to be, you know, we have to show cause for why we would do the exemption. We have to show if we're trying to raise it higher, why a higher threshold is okay. As I said, example, carbon dioxide, we would show there's no problem with this, you consume it. If we had methyl ethyl death and we said if you have a pound of that, we want it reported, then we'd have to go through the same hoops, and we do it in an ordinance, at least through a county ordinance, we would, yeah. And then we'd have to let Jack in the back know through that letter. Okay. Good questions. Okay, this is always a fun one, radioactives. How many of you guys regulate radioactives? Ooh, I don't see any hands. Radioactive hazardous substances are so much fun because you always get kicked up to federal requirements. And I'm going to leave, you have the citation here if you do anything with radioactives. I mean, I've got Loma Linda Medical University, and heaven only knows what they really do out there, because part of the problem I have with Loma Linda, and this is not a bad thing, is you've got grad students out there trying to find the next cure for cancer, and they don't want to share what's in their laboratories. So it's always a very fine sticking point to say, is there a way you can report this without telling me what you have so I can protect the first responders and the community knows? And that's a very, very fine line sometimes. It can be done. You have to work at it, but that's where you coordinate with the company, the agency, the facility, and that's where communication comes into play. Okay, so exemptions. This is always the fun thing, right? Because what's one of the first things, if you're an inspector and you go out to a facility and you say, sorry, you know, ABC Auto, you're going to have to be under permit, and this is the reason why you have to be under permit. What's the first thing out of Mr. ABC Auto's mouth? How can I get out of the permit? I don't want to pay a permit. I don't want to pay money. Okay, well, you can reduce your hazardous materials, your hazardous substances below 55 gallons, 500 pounds, 200 cubic feet, generate no hazardous waste, and I won't have to put you under permit. But for some industries, that's just not possible, is it? If Mr. ABC Auto is an automotive repair shop, he's going to be generating hazardous waste. Now, you may have some shops that only do welding, and sometimes if they can get their compressed gases below the certain thresholds, they may not have to have permits. But it's always the one thing, it's always Murphy's Law when you go out and do an inspection, right? Because you get out there and you say, what's that? And they go, oh man, we didn't have that. I don't know what, it just appeared. My county, sorry. That has to be disclosed, it has to be reported. Here's your permit, thank you very much. Have a great day. Medical gases are exempt up to 1,000 cubic feet. Now, medical gases, doctor's office, veterinarian's office, because I don't have kids, I have 4-legged kids. So most of my money goes to the vet. Podiatrist, anything in the medical field where you have oxygen, nitrogen, nitrous, dentist, near and dear to my heart. If they have below 1,000 cubic feet of those specific gases, they don't have to report them. Now, hopefully they don't have anything else that's going to throw them into their reporting requirements. Lubricating oils, this is always a fun one. Back to the handy dandy health and safety code. Only once in my career have I ever given an exemption for lubricating oils, because I'm going on memory, so work with me here. You can have up to 275 gallons of lubricating oil. You cannot have them in containers larger than 55 gallons, and they have to be of different types of lubricating oils. And at 275 gallons, they don't have to report it. But as I said, there's caveats in there. That's why I put the references on all of the slides for you, so you can go back to the health and safety code and read the exact verbiage. But a lot of times, some facilities can get away with lubricating oil exemption. Usually those are where I've seen it in the past is when we were having the economic boom where the flippers were going in and redoing the houses. The guys that were cutting the granite countertops, they could actually qualify for this exemption because that's the only hazardous material, at least the one place I found in Fontana had. But as I said, read the exemption. Make sure you read all of the ifs, ands, ors, buts without, because the legal guys that sit in the second row really give you a hard time if you kind of overlook a word, don't they? Yeah. AB 408 visited us in an exemption with oil-filled electrical equipment. Not contiguous to an electrical facility is exempt from this section in sections 25505 and 25509 if the aggregate capacity is less than 1320. What does 1320 mean to anybody in the room? AST, APSA, right? So that one's always a fun one because of that 1320. See, the exemptions just really started getting, there's a lot of them and you got to be on your game and know everything. So for everybody who deals with power companies, the power companies are really good in educating the regulators on what should be reported and what shouldn't be reported. Use those industry folks to your advantage because they want to do the right thing, we want to do the right thing. But if it's an oil-filled electrical equipment, and go back to your APSA training for those of you who've done the 24-hour class, if you've done it, or if you want to take it, or if you want to learn APSA. But if it's, oh, wow, sorry, I just saw that. There's another boo-boo. I should give points for boo-boos. Less than 1320 gallons, that's exempt from the business plan if that's all they have. Now, if they have methyl ethyl death out there, probably going to have to report that. I'd want it reported. Consumer products. How many of you have Targets and Walmarts and grocery stores in your jurisdiction? Okay, see, this is where everybody's hand should be going up. So just to know that everybody's still with me, right? Okay, if you have a hazardous material in a consumer commodity, if Kristen can walk into Target and plop down her money and buy Windex in the same package that it came in, all they did was take it out of a box, put it up on display, dusted it maybe a couple of times, and I came and bought it, it doesn't have to be reported in the business plan. Now, the target distribution that I have in my jurisdiction, Kristen can't walk in there and plop down $5 and ask for a bottle of Windex. So that would be reportable in your business plan. But your target stores, we have different issues with the retail facilities. And I believe, I know in conferences past, we've had issues on retail. The biggest problem we have with retail is defining waste. That's in another track, that's in the waste track, point of generation. I encourage anybody and everybody to go take that class if you'd like to. But consumer products that you can actually go in and you can physically buy, or Mr. Poston can go in and physically buy himself, doesn't have to be reported in a business plan. Again, the first responders typically know what's inside Targets, Walmarts, grocery stores. Question. Okay, the question is, how is consumer products defined? Okay, bear with me. Hazardous material contained solely in a consumer product for the direct distribution to and used by the general public is exempt from the business plan requirements of this article unless the administrating agency has found and has provided notice to the business handling the product that the handling of the certain quantities of the product requires the submission of a business plan or any portion thereof in response to public health, safety, or the environmental concern. So that's where you find it. So what it boils down to is the hazardous material has to be solely in a consumer product for direct distribution. That is, it's on the bottom of the slide. So you can download the slides when you get back to the office, but it's in the section 25503.5, little C1. That one is always, that one's tough. Because, as I said, if you have a warehouse, that's pretty cut and dry. Where you have problems, you go to a Costco or a Sam's Club. You know, I walk down the aisles, I see 55-gallon drums of oils. I see, you know, the 1 gallon or the 1 quart motor oils. But it's direct sale to the consumer, whether it's me or a business. So you kind of just have to work with the agency, work with the facility, and, you know, if you want to say, nope, we want everything listed, you can do that, but you have to provide sufficient notice. Any other questions? Sir in the back. Okay, the question is if you bring back a product and he used the name Target, does that become waste or hazardous waste? And I'm going to defer that to the waste track, because that's where we are having some concerns and some issues, and this is where we have to start working with these companies. And it all goes back to Title 22 and the point of generation, and when it's deemed a hazardous waste. We have worked, I hope you've seen, we've had some different statewide settlements. There's injunctive language, two that come to mind because they're out there, Target and Walmart. That was one of the issues. And that comes back, training is a huge issue, because we need to make sure when we're training employees and when Target's training employees that they understand what their responsibilities are. Now, I know when I used to inspect, this was years ago, but Target had a really neat scanning system that they'd scan the barcode and the computer told the associate what to do with the product. So hopefully that's still in place. But if you want more information on that, waste track. And the administrative agency can exempt hazardous materials, as I said. If you go through all of the steps, you do a local ordinance, you have it, you go to a public meeting, you sit there and take all of the bullets from everybody. If they're going to say, hey, we think that that's too conservative or that's not going far enough, you can do it. There is work to be done, and I know in my county it was a board of supervisor that actually encouraged us to get some exemptions on the books. Now, here's one of the fun ones too. Agriculture. See, Jack in the back is having fun because he's sitting back and he's like, ooh. An administrating agency shall, it's one of those legal words, exempt a business operating a farm for purposes of cultivating the soil or raising or harvesting any agricultural or horticultural commodity from filing the information if they file, by January 1st, they file a business plan with the Ag Commissioner. And their buildings are posted for any types of these chemicals that are stored in there, pesticides, fuels, and oils, or fertilizers. Being in Southern California, I have the luxury of I don't have a lot of agricultural exemptions because all of my agriculture moved to the Central Valley. All of the dairies moved up to Fresno, Bakersfield. So when they move to Fresno, I say, go talk to Vince Mendez. Because there are certain exemptions for that. Now, if somebody is growing something, cows, we look at that, they grow milk. Or we've got some chicken ranches that grow eggs. Certain things get exempt. In my county, if they generate used oil as a result of business operation, they're in my program. But they don't have to report pesticides, fuels, and oils and fertilizers. And that's where we had some issue with fertilizer a few years ago, that 5-year example. That was a citrus ranch or citrus farm. And we had a lot of citrus farms, but now they've paved paradise and put on, or they've, I forgot the song. Sorry. We have, thanks for your support. Yeah. Well, the paradise now is we have Targets, and we have Michael's, and we have Pier 1s in old citrus groves in my county, real close to where I live, because it was more profitable for those property owners to rip out the citrus, sell it to the commercial guys, and they put up retail shopping. So I've got a lot of farm, as I said, that's just moving away. I do still have some like alfalfa or hay growers up in my North Desert area, but and I'll admit that I don't have a very good working relationship right now with my county agricultural commissioner. And that's something I have to work on. You guys in the Central Valley, see, I would default to Central Northern for any type of ag questions, because you guys are the experts in that, not me. Agriculture fun. Unstaffed remote facilities. This is another fun one. How many of you enjoy your cell phones? We have them. Thank you for raising your hands. You know, kudos. Okay. We have cell towers that are strewn about that give us our cell coverage, but some of them are on the top of mountains that billy goats won't even climb. And I've been on a couple of those mountains, beautiful views, but they're unstaffed and they're remote. So what are we really concerned about up there? Well, there's two different ways you can look at it. They have hazardous materials, and what are we charged to do? We are charged to protect human health and the environment, right? But they have hazardous materials. They have usually batteries, maybe a backup generator, propane. On the scale of things, when we're talking risk-based, how risky are those compared to manufacturers of chemicals or someone who has methyl ethyl death? So we created this really cool exemption that if you have 500 cubic feet of a compressed gas, asphyxiation or pressure hazards only, those are typically your fire suppression systems, because they have different fire suppression systems. I do know that. 500 gallons of combustible liquids used as fuels, your backup generators. 200 gallons of corrosive liquids. And technology has just gotten really good, and we're not even seeing corrosive liquids, we're seeing corrosive gels now, right? 500 gallons of lubricating oil, or 1,200 gallons of flammable gas. If a facility, a remote facility has that, they're exempt. Here's the problem. What does sparsely populated mean to you? Some of us come from jurisdictions that within 4 hours I can be in an urban area. In 4 hours I can also be in a sparsely populated area where only turtles roam free. It all comes down to the definition of sparsely populated. Now, It may be sparsely populated. It may be something, here's an example, it may be, I don't know, in the Central Valley on a farm. And the farm is, we've got acres and acres of farm. But maybe a cell tower comes in and puts a cell tower right next to the house where the farmer lives. Would you consider that sparsely populated? That's where you have to go back and you have to make the decision. You have to look at your policies, your procedures, talk to your management, and see how they would want to go with that. Because we all like our cell phones. We like our cell phones here because if you have a smartphone, you can do your evaluations. We always want, instant gratification. We want to be able to talk to anybody whenever. When someone's texting you, hey, I need to talk to you now, and you say, hey, cool your jets, I'm in a meeting. That's not what they want to hear. They probably want to, instant gratification. So we have to think about sparsely populated areas. I've got both. And I'll use me as the example. We haven't exempted, we don't use this exemption. Our cell towers are paying permit fees for being up on the top of a mountain, up on your way to Vegas, or if it's in the middle of the city of San Bernardino, they're paying the same permit fee. That's what we've chosen. Now, that can all change. That can change because fiscal year's coming up, we're looking at permits. We're trying to be business friendly, work with our businesses. That can change. But as I said, it's all based on your policies, your procedures, and what your direction is. Question.
Limits in that previous, are they all and or?
The question is, are the limits and or ors? It would be and. If they have only these types of materials in these quantities or below, they're exempt. Methyl ethyl death shows up there, all bets are off. At least they have to report the methyl ethyl death. Okay. Another AB 408 exemption with mineral oil. Mineral oil contained within electrical equipment such as transformers, bushings, electrical switches, and voltage regulators are exempt if a spill prevention control and countermeasure plan has been prepared for quantities in excess of 1320. This one always confuses me because didn't we just see a couple of slides back about 1320? So this is where you really have to look at your exemptions and make sure that you're applying them correctly. 1320, as the fine young lady up front said, that's an SPCC, that's APSA, so they should have an SPCC, right? Probably a Tier 1 qualified facility if they're below 10,000 gallons. If they're above 10,000 gallons, all bets are off. Again, mineral oil, typically this is with your electrical companies. They're very up on the regulations and requirements. Work with them. If you're confused, it's okay to say, I don't understand. That's one of the biggest problems I have with some of my inspectors. It's okay to say, I need to go back and ask the question. It's okay to pick up the phone and call another Coupa. Hey, how are you guys doing it? Because I'll tell you, being on the board, we're sending emails to everybody all the time. How are you guys doing this? Knowledge is power, and sharing the power is wealth. AB 408 did update. This was an exemption, but it kind of clarified this exemption. This has to do with using propane in remote sites. So if you use, store, or both propane in amounts not to exceed 500 gallons for the sole purpose of cooking, heating the employee work areas, and heating water, that propane is exempt. A lot of you may be from rural counties. You may be from areas where you don't have natural gas service. I'm a city girl. The trash truck comes to my house every Friday. I don't have a water well. I have sewer. I'm lucky. I have natural gas, but there are some places in my county where all they have is propane to heat, cook with. We were doing site-specific exemptions for that. This exemption clarified that. Transportation, this is always a fun one. You have to be really careful with transportation because active shipping papers seem to always play a role in this. The first question out of anyone's mouth should be, is this shipment under an active shipping paper? If it's under an active shipping paper, game over, you're done. They don't have to report what's there. We have a lot of cross docks. That makes things a lot very interesting, because I've got railroad. Things come through San Bernardino County and either go up through Vegas or out through Arizona. And they come in on trucks, and we take the truck and we repackage it. It's usually there less than 30 days. If it's even there 36 hours, we're lucky. So, and I think I messed up on this exemption, because it should be, if it's greater than 30 days, it's not exempt. If it's less than 30 days, it's exempt. As I said, that's why the code's on there, so you can check the teacher. My rule of thumb in our county is, if you're going to have a hazardous material on site for less than 30 days, we're not going to make you report it. And the reason being, because before January 1st, 2013, it would take us approximately 30 days to process a paper business plan, to get it out to the fire agency, because we've got that little 15-day requirement that we got to get it to the fire authorities and the fire agencies. So we usually said, if it's less than 30 days, you don't have to report it to us, but you need to call your local fire agency and you need to let them know it's there. They're the first responders. With SIRS, I don't know the answer to that one yet. I'm going to have to go back to the exemption. You'll see why in a couple of minutes. Okay, the question is, isn't this language being revised with the phase 1 of the chapter 6.95 rewrite? We were proposing it. It's probably going to go to the phase 2. The slide that I have did not mention transportation. I will double check that, because transportation is one of the sticking points that we wanted clarified. So thank you for that.
Do you mean under active shipping papers or not under?
The question is, do I mean under or not under? They are exempt if they are under an active shipping paper. So, not under. Yeah, thank you. It was a bad Sunday. It wasn't this Sunday, but now when we're talking transportation, we want to remember rail cars if you have rail going through your jurisdiction, marine vessels if you're on the coast, or marine freight containers. That's what I mostly deal with. There's the trucking with the marine freight containers, because they put all sorts of stuff in those freight trailers, and the ones when they have the orange exploding 1.3 explosive on it, I stay as far away from that shipping container as I can, just because something could explode. And I've got military installations in my county. They like to blow things up. So, yes, ma'am. Okay, the question is, can I expand on cross docks? Okay, so the question is expanding on what a cross dock is. A cross dock is when you have shipping, you have trucks come in to a long dock where there's all those garage doors, and they back into it. And they actually take the commodities off of the truck, and it gets split up and it goes to different trucks to be shipped out. And usually this is done within 24, 36 hours. So the chemicals don't really stay there. They stay there less than the 30 days. Now, part of the problem that we see with cross docks is when you damage chemicals in transportation, because something bumps into something. Different cross docks, different companies handle their hazardous waste differently, because some will call it hazardous waste and they will segregate it into a hazardous waste storage area. Some will ship it back to the actual producer, manufacturer. And then some don't even realize they have leakers. But the cross dock, it's incredible to watch it happen, because those chemicals, and very, very infrequently do you see a lot of chemicals going through the cross docks. Everything that we get, typically chemicals, they don't like to ship chemicals, like UPS and FedEx. That's an example of another cross dock with boxes. FedEx, I don't believe will ship some hazardous materials. Some they will, but they have to be labeled accordingly. But the cross-dock situation is really rapid, and as I said, those chemicals typically don't stay there very long. Typically what you have at a cross dock, or at least what I've seen in my county for reporting, is I've got underground storage tanks because they're fueling the trucks. I typically have a hazardous waste storage area because there's usually waste that is generated. I sometimes, if it's Pep Boys as an example, sometimes they have the same commodities coming through because they're distributing automotive repair parts. So they have motor oils. Sometimes they'll report that because it's consistent and they can always say, yeah, we're going to have this much coming through. But it's more of a coordination with the first responders. So I don't know if that answered your question. If it didn't, we can have a conversation after class. You can pick what's left of my brain on that if you'd like. Yes, Caitlin.
To meet the transportation exemption, do both of those things have to be true, or either?
Either. Because as I said, if it's under an active shipping paper, you're done. You cannot regulate something if it's under an active shipping paper. Where we typically have this problem is in CalARP. And where we see it is we have the rail car of chlorine that comes to the bleach manufacturer. And what they do is they'll bring the rail car in, they disconnect from the locomotive, and they feed directly into the system. At the point of disconnection, at the point when the locomotive is gone, typically it's not under an active shipping paper, although I have been told that sometimes storage can be under an active shipping paper. I don't like that explanation. I've been challenged on that a couple of times, but that's where we're looking at active shipping papers because, you know, a rail car makes an excellent vessel for a lot of chlorine if you're going through it a lot, if you're making bleach. Okay, the question is if it's not under an active shipping paper, but it's there for less than 30 days, is it still an exemption? And as my new friend in the front row here has pointed out, we are addressing that in the Chapter 6.95 rewrite. My take on that is if it's going to be there less than 30 days, you need to let the first responders know, period. Because if you don't, that's when something's going to happen and somebody's going to get hurt. And we have the information or we know of the information, we've got to get that out. So as I said, the citations for everything are on the bottom corner. Take a look at that and then talk to the CUPA or the PA in that area to make sure, because you want to do the right thing. Okay. All right, so what is a business plan? As I said, prior to January 1st, what was a business plan? It's a bunch of piece of papers, right? It can come this much, it can come this much, or it can come in, I don't know, 6-8 boxes worth if you have a very large facility. A business plan consists of inventory, emergency response plans and procedures, and training. That's a business plan. But how are we communicating that? Well, as I said, January 1st, classroom right behind us. They're talking SIRS. Here's a plug for Thursday. If you want to learn more about SIRS, you can go to that class. You're going to learn a little bit about SIRS today from my limited exposure to SIRS. Many of you probably have worked more with SIRS. I am a county that is a Decade user. So I'm using Decade, Envision Connect. But since electronic data transfer isn't working yet, I don't have anything. I'm not exchanging information. I don't have a portal. I don't have portal NV. I'm glad I don't have a portal. And the reason why is because I think it's going to be easier as we progress with the whole SIRS thing. But when you go to the SIRS Central website, this is what you see. You see the business portal and you see the regulator side portal. How many of you have not gone on SIRS yet? Okay. And maybe you're going to be lucky and maybe you get to do everything through your data system. Are you an Envision Connect? Awesome. See, if we were a little more advanced, we would be there too. But okay, you go in, you set up a username, you set up a user password, and those of us in this room who are regulators, we get to go through the regulator portal. For those of us that are industry, business, or consulting, you get to go through the business portal. When you are a regulator and you sign in, this is the first page you're going to see. And as of a week ago Sunday, San Bernardino County had received a total of 510 submissions. We're going to talk about what a submission is. And you'll see that 211 of them are new, because we said after January 1st, we weren't accepting paper business plans. Now, I say that if somebody walks into my my office with a paper business plan, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and take your submission. It goes into a different pile to be focused on at a workshop at a later date. Because then what we'll do is we'll get those folks in, sit them in front of a computer, hand them that business plan and say, okay, let us show you how to enter the information. Because surprisingly enough, and I know people, other board members just say that I'm way off base on this. In San Bernardino County, we probably have at least 40% of my county does not either have access to a computer, does not have the internet, or has no inclination of using the internet. I've had inspectors come back and tell me that they see a computer at a facility, it has internet, and the operator has said, we're not going to do this. So there's the new challenge for us, to go out and make sure we get them into compliance, right? With a smile. So this is the first page that you're going to see. Now, I went in as a regulator and I said, I'm going to look for a facility. And the facility I chose was Glade. This facility is a chemical distribution facility. It's pretty much a use store it. Imagine a use store it, or you go and you store your stuff somewhere with all the roll-up garages. This is what this place is, with all sorts of chemicals. And I'm talking, we've got cyanides, we've got chlorine, we've got ammonia. You name it, Glade's probably got it. Great company to work with. They've been nothing but great guys. So you can see here, the SIRS ID is showing up. When we were doing our SIRS seed, we only seeded facility information. We don't have any of our chemical information in a database. So we're asking all of our facilities, get your access, go in, complete everything, and submit. Why I wanted to show you guys this page is right now, because we haven't started exchanging data through SIRS and Envision Connect. My inspectors have to go to 2 different places to make sure to see if somebody submitted a business plan. They've got to go in to our Envision Connect to see if a service request has been generated, meaning we've received something, we've assigned a task, or they have to go into SIRS. And you can see here in the very right-hand corner, it says last submittal, and you'll see a date of 1/17/2013. Woohoo! They met the deadline. When you click on the submittal, this is the next page that I'm going to see. Now, you're not seeing the complete screen. Okay, this is kind of cut. So you can go play in SIRS, you can go in the business portal, whatever. But you can see, Joel, you can come in. You can go sit back. You can go sit in the back with Jack. Jack in the back and Fred. You guys are all going to get to meet Joel in a few minutes, so. This is the facility information that is there, that they have gone in. Once they have been granted access, they can go in and update the information as they need. But you can see that it shows the business submittal, the compliance date, other identifiers. We uploaded what we have, what's called a facility ID. So you can see our facility ID, so we can cross-reference. But I'm sure our facility ID is going to be going away. But what I want to point out is, take a look at the reporting requirements and how it says submittal element. You can see when they go in to do the business activities, the old business activities form, the yes, no, do you do this, do you do that? This tells us what they're applicable for, what we should be looking for. So they have self-identified that they have facility information. They have to report that. They have to report the material, their inventory. They have to report the emergency response and training plans. And everything else there, well, you see underground storage tank and tier permitting is not applicable because they checked no on the form. Here's another way to look at the submittal. You see the SIRS ID, you see the address, you see when it was submitted, and you see what was submitted. Now, remember a few slides back, what did I say consisted what consists of a business plan? facility, the inventory information, the emergency response plans, and training. So you can see we have things submitted. So from the looks of it, they've met the requirement. But looks can be deceiving, right? Okay, this is what you see when you go into the business side. And you're gonna see this awesome new company that just was incorporated, or LLC'd, whatever the technical term is, called Fire Pig Tactical. We're gonna walk through what your business is gonna see. This is what you guys may be walking people through this. I know in my shop, we have a SIRS helpline, and we are walking people through how to submit in SIRS. So what they're gonna see on the business side. So when we see Fire Pig Tactical, we're gonna hit the start button. This is what we see, the instructions and the help. Okay, so I'm looking at it for the first time and I'm getting paralyzed, right? Because there's lots of words. There's no pictures. You know, I'm a very visual person. I wanna see pictures, I wanna see things. But you see here your start button, your submit, all of these other things. Well, this is what the business activities form looks like. This is what the facility is actually gonna go in and fill out. Ooh, sorry about that. Got excited. Ooh, remember that business activity form, the one in Title 19, Title 27, that had to come in with all your business plan submittals? This is what it looks like. This is the yes, no. So it has the facility name, the business site address, it has the SIRS ID. Didn't do a map, because while Fire Pig Tactical exists, it exists at my house, and you guys don't need to know my address. So didn't put a map in there. But I started answering the questions. Does my facility have on site, well, some of this is true, hazardous materials at or above 55 gallons for liquids, 500 pounds for solids, or 200 cubic feet of compressed gases? Where have we seen that? We saw that in the very beginning, remember? 55, 500, 200. It doesn't go into all of the exemptions. This can get very confusing for our facilities, and this is where we as the regulators need to help them out. You need to make sure that I'm a county that requires hazardous waste to be listed in a business plan. So if I have ABC Auto and all they have is a 35-gallon drum of used oil, they read this and they're going to say, I don't have to do this. And they're going to check no. And then what's going to have to happen is I'm going to have to go back in after the fact and change it to yes so they can submit, because this tells us what elements they should be maybe permitted for or what we should be looking for in that business plan. As I said, it's just like the business activities form you're accustomed to that you've seen in the past. Yes, sir. Okay, the question is we've gone through what the exemptions are, what the requirements are, and it says if shown, what are the inventory reporting requirements shown below if present. You don't see that because I didn't get the screenshot. The other thing is if you are if you have local requirements, that was supposed to be loaded into SIRS, or it's going to be part of the SIRS .3. Certain requirements, certain agencies will have locally collected requirements that you were supposed to let Cal EPA know, and then when somebody, let's say they go into San Bernardino County and they fill something out, my San Bernardino County requirements are going to show. But if they were in LA County, they're not, the San Bernardino requirements aren't going to show, the LA counties are going to show. And as I said, unfortunately, this is not the whole screenshot. So there's more stuff below and additional information may be there. Requirements.
So if somebody's doing this live, it does show to that?
Yes, if somebody is doing this live, it will show. The question, as I understand it, is multiple jurisdictions, multiple facilities and multiple jurisdictions, and how is that going to be handled? Okay, here's the segue to SIRS. Under that, a business organization is created. So where you saw Fire Pig Tactical, the business organization's name is there, and then below that are all of the listed facilities. You click on the facility, you're still going to have to go through this for each facility. But yes, you're right. If it's in LA County and they have a special requirement, those are going to pop up. If it's in San Diego County, so yes, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for our customers. You're welcome. Okay. Now, this is the equivalent of your business owner operator identification page. And to be quite honest, it looks a lot like the form facilities used to fill out. It's just nice and pretty and neat and in a computer data field. I've been trying to encourage my staff to say, hey, we don't talk about forms anymore, talk about data fields, because that's what we're really collecting. So you get to see the mailing address, your owner information, depending if you're a Garrison user, if you're an Acela user, a Decade user, how this information will then go into your system is going to be different. Or you just may use CSRS. Victorville County Coupa, or Victorville City Coupa, which is in San Bernardino County, they're only using CSRS. They're not using any other product out there. So when Greg Kuhn goes to look at his submissions, this is what he's going to be looking at. So it's getting you the information you would use in the past for your billing, where they're located, your beginning date and ending date. That goes way back to the very beginning where we talked about the Cali EPA policy letter. So this is going to help us, well, it's going to help me in San Bernardino, making sure that I get my facilities in compliance. Okay, so Fire Pig, I started entering the information. Here's the other beautiful thing with CSRS. You put in the chemical name and you hit search, and this is what it pops up with. Do you guys see at the bottom all the numbers? Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is going to be a challenge for us, I think, in working with our businesses and trying to find the correct chemical. So we're going to have to grin and bear it and help our facilities find that correct chemical. They may be able to identify it using a CAS number because what? They're going to have that beautiful materials data safety sheet that's going away for global harmonization. But there's all sorts of different oils, and oil is just one of the common ones I picked. I also picked propane, because what would Fire Pig Tactical be without propane for the barbecues, right? These are all of your choices for propane. So this is where it gets challenging to make sure that we're getting the correct information to our responders and to the community. Now, here's the form, the inventory form that you guys are probably very accustomed to if you did anything with paper business plans. The chemical name, the common name, and there are certain fields here that are pre-filled out if you click on one of the, chosen inventories. If we have information, there are some things we don't have information for, and you see some blanks. Some blanks are okay. But if you leave an important blank, CSRS gives you the red nub. It says, nope, stop, can't go on, you can't submit, there's your red nubbin. Okay, your red nubbin there. For the used lubricating oil, I forgot something. So it's not happy with me. And this is a nice view too, because you kind of see a summary of what you've already put in, what the chemicals are. Some Coupas used to do an inventory summary sheet. So this kind of replaces an inventory summary sheet. So when you click on that chemical and you go back, you see that the red the red nub said, I didn't put in the physical state. It's up on the upper right hand and it's boxed by red. So what did I do? I clicked on it and I entered the physical state. So there is some good things about CSRS. It does tell you if you haven't filled something out right, if it knows. Okay, so this is what you see when you click on the emergency response and contingency plan. Now, on the left, you have a whole bunch of document options, like upload a document, providing a URL, providing another submittal. Maybe you've already provided it and the facility has already provided it to the regulator. It's stored at the facility or it's exempt. If you're not a hazardous waste generator, you don't have to do a contingency plan, so you may be exempt. But this is where you need to go back to your agency and find out what your policy is. Are you going to let a facility say stored at the facility? Do you want to see this information? Do you not want to see this information? And that's where policies and procedures are going to be created. My agency, because, I'm San Bernardino, that's how I roll, I'm going to want to see it. And the reason we want to see it is because we want to make sure that a facility is doing it. Because there are many times facilities just don't, if we don't force their hand, they're not going to do it. It's kind of like me. If the conference wasn't today, I wouldn't have had my presentation done. Well, I did work on it last night, but it wouldn't have been done until, maybe this morning. Forcing people to do stuff. So, policy, procedure, go back to your shop and see how you're going to do that, how you're going to manage that. This is what, if you click on the Consolidated Emergency Response and Contingency Plan, this is the form you'll see. Here's the disadvantage to this form. It's a computer form. And if you have full-blown Adobe Acrobat or Adobe, you can save this form. I don't have that on my work computer. I'd love to have Adobe, but I don't have it. I can't save the form. I can type on it, I can print it out, but I can't save it as an electronic document. So what I'm gonna have to do if I'm, Fire Pig Tactical submitting to San Bernardino County, I'd fill out the form, I would print it, I would have to scan it, and I would have to attach it back to the record. Policies, procedures. So, I've gone through and I've done my facility information. Okay, facility information has two elements within it. That's your business activities and that's your owner-operator identification. Your inventory, you can see that I have 5 inventoried items. I said that I already provided my site map to the regulator because I just didn't draw the map. I also, you can see under the emergency response and training plans that I've submitted, I said ready to submit because I said I pretended there's an attachment there, so just pretend with me. So now the next step that a business would do, see the green submit buttons? If you click on one of them, you get to this and it says submit the selected elements, and you can see my 3 elements are checked. And then I'm going to say submit the selected elements, and this is what I'm going to see. Now, here's the challenge. Here's the next challenge we're all facing. Jim Bohan talked in the plenary session about how many submittals we've had already with SIRS. Each submittal is a separate submittal. You have 3 elements within the submittal, but you have a submittal. People are getting confused, facilities are getting confused, and they'll only submit the facility identification. They'll do that. Or they'll only submit the inventory, and then they'll come back and do another submittal. So you're gonna see some really wacky, crazy submittals going on probably for the first year or so that we're just gonna have to work through with our facilities. And this is where, as I said, here's the second plug, go to the SIRS class if you haven't, if you wanna learn more about it, or talk to the person in your agency that's implementing SIRS. But now I can see, you can clearly see on there when I submitted it and who I submitted the information to. Okay, so that's your brief SIRS explanation. Now, as with anything in the CUPA, sometimes we have to take enforcement. We might not want to, but sometimes it's a necessity. We have the opportunity to go administrative or civilly. We can do it through an AEO. That's another class. There's a class at 1 o'clock on AEO stuff for government employees only. AEOs, there are other agencies who have been very successful with AEOs for business plan. The purpose we would use an AEO for is for somebody who we feel is going to come back into compliance. Because the other option we have is I get to go see Mr. Poston. I get to sit in his office and explain to him why Mr. Smith is not being a good operator, and this is why, and then he gets to choose whether he thinks it's a doable case and that it's worthy, or that, no, you need to try a different route. So we can go administrative, we can go civil. I've been one of these ones. I was supposed to do AEOs on business plans a couple of years ago, but I knew SIRS was coming, and I just I'm not gonna do it. Now, the other thing I wanna say is, with SIRS coming online, the Enforcement Steering Committee has been talking about enforcement options also. And for statewide consistency, we are going to be putting out guidance probably in the next couple of months. But we've all said we know that this is, and I keep calling it the year of amnesty, but this is a year where we're trying to get everybody to use SIRS, understand SIRS, and get comfortable with SIRS. So unless there's a really outstanding reason why enforcement for business plan only violations may not be coming. We're trying to say, let's get everybody in compliance first. I don't want to go out and start hitting people with AEOs because they didn't submit with SIRS as of January 1st when Joel in Tulare isn't doing that. That's not a good message. I'm just saying. That's not a good message for us, Koopas, to be sending out. So we're working together, so guidance should be coming. So please be on the lookout for that. Question in the back. Okay, the question is, when a facility is submitting using SIRS, what's happening on the regulator side? How are they reviewing it and going on? First of all, and Jack in the back and Fred can clarify and correct me if I'm wrong, but there really is no requirement to review a business plan, but if you choose to do it, then you have to go through and provide your notice. What can happen is, if we go back, and I'm sorry to flash through this, but I want to show you. You see here how you can see the facility, you can see the information is submitted. What happens is you can either change the status to in progress or reviewed. You can change it to rejected, or you can change it to accepted. And that's going to be your jurisdiction's policy, how you're going to handle that. How are you going to do the review? Are you going to, how do you process your plan? What are you looking for? How I'm going to do it in San Bernardino County this week, all of my inspectors are getting computers, laptops. So when they're out doing a handler inspection, they're going to be verifying the SIRS submission while they're doing it. Other agencies, this is where you start calling around to the other agencies. Hey, how are you guys doing this? But remember back here, remember, I have 510 submittals I haven't even looked at. And I'm getting questions, hey, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? Right? Because you don't get a return receipt. You don't get a receipt if you walk it in. So we're going to have to address that. The other thing I have to do is I need to go into those facilities and I need to make sure billing information is correct, because I don't want my bill going to a wrong place. And so if that's the case, then I'm going to change the status to under review. This is a great networking question you can ask your fellow lunch mates when you go to lunch. How are you guys doing that? So talk to the other Koopas, because you know what? They probably have better ideas than others. Uh-oh. Here we go. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
How does a business know that they've been rejected for an element?
How does a business know if they've been rejected for an element? If you reject it, an automated email, to my knowledge, is generated and it's sent back to the facility. Now, there was a question yesterday in the manager's workshop about the verbiage, because you can actually add a comment, and SIRS is going to be looking at, because I guess the comment comes out really ugly. It's not, it's a formatting, not ugly like, well, I say ugly talk, but it's not, it'll come back in a formatting issue. But they do get, that's why they have to have an email address so we can communicate with them. Question. Okay, the question is, if you have multiple facilities and multiple jurisdictions, what platform are you supposed to be using? The easy answer to that is everybody can use SIRS. Period. Even if you have e-file, even if you have your own portal, you have to be able to go and anybody can use SIRS. If you're in Fresno County, as an example, because I know there is a portal, you can go through the Fresno portal or you can go into SIRS. Because eventually we're going to have what they're calling two-way data transfer, and all the information will get uploaded, downloaded, and everything. So it'll get covered, but that won't be for a few more months. To really answer the question, as I said, you can always go into SIRS or you call the local agency and you ask them. That, unfortunately, that's not, I'm sure, the answer you really want to hear, but that's you're going to get the most correct answer that way too. Plus, we're not scary people. Well, I may be, but we're not. Joel's not scary. He's really nice. Well, this leads into Joel, because Joel, stand up, Joel, and wave to everybody. Yay! Recipient of an award this morning. Yay! Joel is our tag chair for the HMBP. Joel does an excellent job of working on conference calls where he gets all of us together. It's like herding cats sometimes, but we all get on the phone and we talk about issues. One of his biggest accomplishments, he was able to get a lead acid battery template through, working with the Koopas, working with the PAs, and industry. So that's a huge feather in Joel's cap. He's also been working on, he's also created some guidance from AB 408. He has kind of a, remember we were talking about those compressed gases and asphyxiation and everything. Joel's group came together and created a document, so we were trying to get some consistency on how we were applying the new AB 408 requirements consistently. Joel is always looking for volunteers, and this is your opportunity. If you are not involved in a tag and you're just raring to go to get into a tag or be a part of the unified voice that we're trying to create, Joel's the man. Get on his email list. If you don't listen to the calls, at least read his emails, read his minutes. Joel is a great, great resource, and we really appreciate everything Joel's done. So kudos again, Joel. Thank you. Thanks, Joel. Okay, Chapter 6.95, what everybody's been waiting for, right? This is what we're calling Phase 1. These are some of the changes that we are proposing to push through this legislative cycle to update Chapter 6.95, like changing the reference of AA. Remember, it's not Alcoholics Anonymous, it's Administrating Agency to Unified Program Agency for consistency. We're trying to group what we're calling, and I'm using air quotes, like items and topics together, because Chapter 6.95, Article 1, you kind of got to weave your way through things. So we're trying to clean it up. See, Jack in the back was shaking his head. We're going to introduce references to SIRS because we don't do paper anymore, right? We're going all electronic. We're going green. We really want to remove some dated items. We're going to update the fire code citations. We're going to be talking about the training and response plans for SIRS, how that's going to get incorporated, what's a requirement, what may not be. And I know this is on Joel's parking lot for the tag is the site maps, site plans. What are we going to do with that? So that's where, as I said, if you're interested, Joel has been leading that with Danielle Stefani. If you know Danielle, she does a lot of electronic reporting things. They've been instrumental in getting the language together, and we should be having something coming out really soon so everybody can take a look at it. If you're not a manager or you haven't seen it, talk to one of your Coupa Forum board members and we'll get you the information, because this is going to affect everybody. And we know we don't make everybody happy all the time, but we need to hear your voice. So I always say be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Business plans going forward. Well, SIRS is the biggest thing we've got going right now, right? Everybody's trying to manage SIRS. How are we going to figure this out? How are we going to get the information out to those first responders? That's where you got to start talking to your first responders. I'm going out right now. I'm giving access to my fire agencies because I don't have anything in Envision Connect. This is the best way I can get the information out to them. Reports are going to be coming. We're going to be getting information, pushing the information out to them, but I also need to know what information they want to see. Do they really want to see an owner address? Probably not. What they're going to want to see is the facility address and the chemicals there and who to contact in the event of an emergency. But I'm just speaking on behalf of responders. So we're going to be working on that. There is going to be a pilot project that'll be coming out later this year for first responders. If you go into SIRS, there is a responder tab, and if you click on it, it says under construction. So Cal EPA is working on that. Again, if you have suggestions, there's another working group. There's the CRUG, and there's the RUG, the Regulator User Group for SIRS, or no, I'm sorry, it's the BUG and the RUG. The BUG is the Business User Group for SIRS, and the Regulator Group is the RUG. So if you want to get in that, you know, we talk in acronyms. See, at least I made you laugh. And it's almost lunch. Thank you for indulging. We want to make sure that we get our voices heard and that business has a chance to speak. Yes, ma'am.
I've seen a couple changes between the slides that you had up there and the slides that were online.
Yes. Yes, thank you for noticing. The slides that were posted a couple of weeks ago, and I have made a couple of updates to the slides. The 6.95 was one of them, so I will be reposting this. So you'll have the opportunity to go back and download it, change the font, put your own organization on it, or completely, blow it up, because that's what we do. Mr. Poston. Sure, you can correct my typos and email it back to me. Thank you. This is a gentleman who also sent me an email to point out other problems I've had, so I appreciate your support. Thank you. Yes, sir. The statement is a SIRS frustration with the inventory, and this is going to be my suggestion. We need to email that to sirs@calipa.ca.gov as a suggestion, because we are looking at ways to improve SIRS, and the whole management of change process starts when we start getting these items, and SIRS 3.0, because we're currently in 2.0, will be launched in 2015. It takes that long to go through management of change. We've got to get all of our wants, our needs, all of the things that we've kind of figured out's wrong by the end of June, so that we can start getting it, moving it forward, so that we can improve the system. So Jim Bohan, Chris Allen, or Dan Firth with Cal EPA, you can send it to me and I can forward it on your behalf. You can get Joel involved, because with the business plan inventory, those are issues that tag would take forward to steering committees and to UPAG. There's all sorts of mechanisms out there, and that's for anybody and everybody. If you see something that you want an improvement on, by all means, let us know. I like the ranges too, because that's a way that you can, I didn't even touch trade secret, because trade secret is very touchy. A lot of people will see trade secret on a material safety data sheet, and they say, oh, this whole thing is a trade secret. Well, no, trade secret has substantiation issues. If it's truly a trade secret, we have to make sure we are aware of that for the Public Records Act, because I personally don't want to be responsible for releasing a trade secret that the competitor's going to get and then come back and get sued. It just gets really, really ugly that way. Public Records Act. We're going to have to figure out with SIRS how we address that issue, because the public has the right to know what's in the community. We did it with a business plan. Somebody could come into your office during normal office hours. They could request the business plan. You give it to them. They take a look at it. Thank you very much. Well, now SIRS is an electronic record, and that's your master record. So now we've got to go back and look at Public Records Act. We've got to look at policies. I've got this thing called the Sunshine Ordinance in my county that we have to address on how we deal with public records. Record retention. That's another issue that we have to deal with, because a lot of us are transitioning from paper files to electronic files. One of my goals and objectives for my work performance evaluation was converting my paper file room into an electronic file room. San Diego has done it. I'm sure some of you have already done it. So we've got to figure out how to manage that in the future. So that's business plans going forward. So if you got great ideas, share them. Share them, because we like to share. Well, our journey is over.